If you've got a compact tractor sitting in the barn with more hours on it than the guy who sold it to you has years on this earth, this one's for you. I spent 35 years with grease under my fingernails. And here's the first thing I want you to know. I don't fix compact tractors for a living anymore. Haven't turned a wrench for hire in 3 years. But people still call me. Neighbors still stop me at the feed store and ask the same question every single time. Which one should I actually buy? And every time, I tell them the same thing I'm about to tell you. One brand on the market today has a pattern of transmission and hydraulic failures that shows up too often to call bad luck. It sits right next to Kubota and John Deere on the lot, priced to look like the smart buy. Underneath the hood is an engine built by a completely different company. That badge swap is where this story starts, and it costs real money 2 or 3 seasons in. None of that means the guy running one right now did anything wrong. Picture someone who bought it, changed the fluid on schedule, kept the filters clean, and followed the manual to the letter. He still watched it limp back to the dealer twice in 1 season. That's not a maintenance failure. That's a machine that was never built with enough room for the real world it got sold into. The design decided the outcome long before that tractor ever sat in his barn. This isn't a top 10 list, and it isn't a neutral roundup either. 3 compact tractors deserve a real look. One deserves to get walked past on the lot. Before naming names, here's exactly what separates the 2 piles. Start with the transmission and hydraulics, because that's the part most buyers never think to ask about. Some brands build a system a dealer can actually open up, service, and repair with real parts. Others build a black box, cheap to make, expensive to replace, never meant to be opened. Next comes ownership. A tractor built by an independent company or a family-controlled group with decades in the business tends to get engineered with the next several seasons in mind. A tractor born from a corporate buyout gets engineered around a different question. How fast can this turn a profit? Then there's the quieter tell almost nobody checks. Was the tractor actually built by the name stamped on the hood, or is it a rebadged machine dressed up to look proprietary? None of that shows up in a brochure. It shows up 2 or 3 seasons in. One name deserves credit before this goes any further, and that's Kubota. It isn't the villain of this story. It's a large, publicly traded Japanese manufacturer, and its dealer network is about as deep as it gets in the compact tractor world. Owner reviews keep naming it the benchmark. Other brands get measured against. This isn't a story about big companies being bad and small companies being good. It's about which companies are still building something worth the money, no matter their size. First on the buy list is LS Tractor. It gets positioned as the budget-friendly alternative, sitting right next to Kubota and John Deere on the lot, with similar spec sheets and a noticeably lower price tag. What most buyers never learn is who's actually behind that name. LS Tractor is the agricultural machinery division of LS Mintron, part of South Korea's LS Group, still controlled by the Koo family, the same family that helped found LG. Nobody in a private equity office decided what goes into an LS transmission. LS Mintron doesn't just build tractors under its own name. It builds tractors for Case IH in New Holland as an outside supplier, and for Claas in certain markets too. That's a company trusted to build equipment. Other major brands put their own name on. LS Tractor USA runs out of North Carolina, with assembly and distribution support out of Louisiana and California. Parts and service aren't coming from overseas on a slow boat. The one honest trade-off is dealer density. In some regions, an LS dealer sits farther away than a Kubota or deer dealer, which matters if same-day parts are the priority. For a DIY-minded owner, comfortable doing some of the wrenching, that trade-off is easy to accept. A smaller price tag paired with real outside supplier credibility is a fair trade for a longer drive. The second buy is the one that surprises people the most, the Massey Ferguson 1700E series. The name alone carries decades of heritage, the kind of reputation that makes buyers assume they're paying for tradition. Here's the honest part most sellers won't say out loud. The company behind that badge today isn't some multi-generation farm family operation. A GCO owns Massey Ferguson now. A GCO exists because a group of executives led by Robert Ratliff bought out Deutz Alice back in 1990, paying for the deal by selling off the company's unpaid customer bills before eventually taking AGCO public. That heritage-sounding name sits on top of a company built through a corporate buyout, not a family legacy. Here's why that doesn't sink the pick. The engineering on the 1700E is still genuinely good. Buyers choose between an 8x8 synchro shuttle transmission built for mowing and hauling, or a 3-range hydrostatic gearbox that makes loader work easier. Even the 1726E shares its chassis with the 1734E and the 1739E, built off a platform sourced from Iseki. Even Massey Ferguson leans on outside engineering in places, and the lesson holds either way. A machine gets bought for what it actually does in the field, not for the org chart sitting quietly behind the badge. If a fuller buying guide sounds useful right about now, there's one built for exactly this kind of decision. The 20-year compact tractor buying guide walks through this in more depth, and the link sits right in the description. The standout feature almost nobody expects on a machine in this class is cab suspension paired with a suspended front axle. Those options usually show up on tractors well above this price range. Run one for hours on a rutted gravel drive or a rough back pasture, and that suspended front end soaks up impact a rigid mounted platform never can. By the end of a long afternoon, the difference shows up in how worn out the driver feels. It's the kind of detail that never makes a spec sheet, but it's the first thing a longtime operator notices climbing down after a full day of loader work. For anyone whose property has outgrown hobby acreage work and the job calls for daily commercial use, the John Deere 3 Series or Kubota's Grand L Series sit a tier above everything here. Worth a look once the workload demands more than a compact tractor was ever meant to handle. Third on the buy list is Coyote, built by Daedong Corporation out of Daegu, South Korea. That company has been building tractors since 1968 and runs as its own independent business, not a conglomerate spin-off and not answering to a fund. Coyote gets positioned and priced as the value alternative to Kubota, and it backs that positioning with a warranty that beats almost everything else in the compact tractor world. Back in 2008, Coyote expanded its warranty into a full 4-year full fleet policy, covering personal and commercial use with unlimited hours. That's a level of confidence a company doesn't offer unless it already trusts what it built. Here's the one catch worth knowing before signing anything. Owners running the CK, CS, and DK series report fewer problems overall. The newer NX series, with its electronically controlled hydrostatic transmission, shows up more often in fault code complaints tied to the forward and reverse solenoid. That's not a reason to walk away from Coyote. It's a reason to ask which series and transmission sits under the hood. Any buyer should ask that about any machine on the lot, not just this one. Now, the one worth walking past. The original? Mahindra E-Max 22 and 25 sit in that 22 to 25 horsepower subcompact class, priced hard against Kubota's BX and John Deere's 1023E. On paper, it looks like a smart buy. Underneath the hood sits a Daedong-built 3-cylinder diesel paired to a 2-range hydrostatic transmission. Daedong happens to be the same Korean company that builds Coyote tractors. So the badge says Mahindra, but the heart of the machine came from somebody else's parent company. That alone isn't the crime. Plenty of good machines share parts across brands. The real problem shows up in how that transmission behaves once it leaves the lot. Owners report the hydrostatic system slipping under load. The hydraulics leak. The engine runs hotter than it should. Dig into why, and it traces back to the same weak points every time. Contaminated fluid, blocked filters and lines, a hydraulic pump or control valve that gives out under stress most owners never know they're applying. That's not bad luck. That's a machine built with almost no room for the small maintenance gaps every real property owner eventually runs into. One owner's Max 22 with the HST transmission went back to the shop 7 times in 2 months. A repair technician got sent to the house twice within the first 60 days of ownership. That story shows up again and again across tractor forums, and it tends to follow the same shape. The tractor runs fine for the first few weeks. Then a slow leak turns into a bigger one, or the hydrostatic pedal starts feeling soft under load. By the second or third visit, the owner isn't dealing with a quick fix anymore. A hydrostatic transmission isn't a part that gets swapped out on the spot. It's a special order, and the tractor sits in the shop waiting on it. That's real time off a piece of equipment bought to get work done, not to visit a service counter. Not every E-Max fails, but the ones that do tend to fail fast and often, and tend to cost the owner the season, not just the repair bill. It isn't following the same playbook the rest of this category runs on, and that gap is worth remembering the next time a dealer glosses over which transmission sits under a tractor's hood. Worth clearing up before moving on, since this comes up constantly online. Those horror stories about sealed, non-serviceable transmissions cooking themselves from the inside mostly come from riding lawnmowers, not real compact tractors. That's a different machine built for a different job. Most compact tractor hydrostatic systems, including LS, Massey Ferguson, Coyote, and Kubota, get built to be opened, serviced, and repaired by a dealer. That's why the E-Max's documented failure pattern stands out the way it does. Lined up together, the pattern gets easy to see. LS Tractor delivers real outside supplier credibility and family-controlled ownership at a lower price point. Massey Ferguson trades a manufactured heritage story for genuinely strong engineering and a suspension setup nothing else in its class offers. Coyote backs a workhorse lineup with a warranty beating almost everything else in the business, so long as the transmission gets checked before buying. The Mahindra E-Max runs another company's powertrain under its own badge, and it carries a documented pattern of failures that shows up far too often to call bad luck. None of this means an older tractor sitting in a barn right now is junk, even if it's showing its age. A machine that's been maintained, fluid changed on schedule, filters kept clean, and still starts every morning, did its job. The design either gave that machine real room to work with, or it didn't. That decision got made in an engineering office long before it ever reached a dealer lot. 2 more names deserve a quick mention. Yanmar has a reputation for solid Japanese engineering and long engine life, even with a smaller dealer footprint in most regions. Branson Tractors positions itself as an independent budget option, worth a look for a first-time buyer working with a tighter number. One thing worth doing before the next scheduled service, no matter which brand sits in the barn right now. Check the hydrostatic fluid and filter condition before the warranty window closes. Most owners never think to look until something already feels wrong. A leak caught early at the first service is usually covered. That same leak, found after the window closes, turns into an out-of-pocket problem fast. It takes a few minutes, and it's the cheapest insurance available for any hydrostatic transmission. 3 solid tractors are worth the drive to a dealer. 1 is worth walking straight past, no matter how good the price looks on the sticker. Drop a comment below with which brand is sitting in the barn right now, because the next property owner scrolling through these comments deserves to know the real story too.